Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Jessica Kapkar with the Better Business Bureau of Central Ohio. Glad you could be here with us this afternoon for the Brady Ware Women's Leadership Conference webinar with Betty Collins. We're excited to have this going on today. It is kind of wrapping up the end of National Women's Small Business Month, so we're thrilled to have you all join us and thrilled to have Betty be able to do this presentation for us. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we are recording the webinar. It will be able to be found on trustlocal.org afterwards if you'd like to refer back to anything. Betty does have a couple of handouts for everybody, so you can feel free to download those and refer to those as we go along. And if anybody has any questions, we are going to leave time at the end. So please feel free to type those into the question box, and we will make sure that we get to as many of those as we can as time allows. With that, I want to go ahead and introduce Betty. Betty Collins serves as the director of Brady Ware & Company, having spent her entire career in public accounting. Her primary focus has been on the preparation of completions and reviewed financials, as well as a consultant with clients in the area of maintaining and developing their business by advising them on general operations management, cash flow, and future earnings. Betty also advises clients in the area of QuickBooks and assists with taxation preparation and strategic planning for corporations as well as individuals. She was instrumental in founding the Brady Ware Women's Leadership Conference in 2015, of which we are a great participant and sponsor and glad to be so. She is a member of the Ohio Society of CPA, the AICPA, the Women's Small Business Accelerator, and the National Association of Women Business Owners. She serves as president of NAWBO Board of Directors, as well as on the Board of Directors for Brady Ware and our own BBB. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Betty.
Thank you, Jessica. We are so thrilled to partner with the BBB. We find it, Brady Ware, we think is an outstanding organization, and they have really risen to the occasion, especially with this Women's Leadership Conference. So we thank you definitely for being a partner. Another partner with us is the WSBA. They have been with our conference since 2014. Today we have their chair of the board, Melissa Beheimer. She also is a director at Brady Ware, and she leads our long-term care business, as well as she does tremendous in the areas of all of our auditing and A&A work. So she is with us today, and she is, the WSBA is probably a little exhausted. They just had 3 very major events for National Women's Business Month, so it was a big task to undertake, and they just did a great job under her leadership doing that. So I'm just glad you're with us today, and we're just going to have some fun with Now What, and hopefully you will be not just entertained, but that you will learn something. And I am going to bribe you throughout this. I do have 4 $50 gift cards with Amazon. So if you're listening and taking notes and staying with us, I'm going to ask questions 4 different times during this, and then we'll give out the winners at the end. And then for questions, if you end up having questions and such, please put them in the chat room, and then Jessica will read them to me. And there are 2 handouts that might help you follow along, because there's a lot of detail to what I'm saying. So it might just be helpful, something you can read over the weekend, I'm sure. So let's just get going for such a time as this, right? And what a crazy, crazy ride we've all been on. You know, we ended this decade on a very high note. It was a big time to celebrate. Christmas was big, New Year's was big, vacations were big, the market was rolling. I mean, it wasn't even just Wall Street, it was Main Street. They were just kicking butt. And we probably felt pretty invincible. And, you know, oh, by the way, there was this little virus somewhere else across the ocean, right? And we didn't really affect us coming into 2020 at that point. And so in February of 2020 is a leap year, and my husband is a leap year baby. So on the 29th, we went to Jeff Ruby's and had fine steak and had his family and gifts. And we left there just going, man, life is good. And within a week, the directors of Brady Ware, we were talking about what are we going to do when Corona, not the beer, when the coronavirus hits us? How are we going to react? How are we going to respond? And I'm thinking, respond to what? It's busy season. We've got work to do. And this is not near us, right? Well, March 16th, Brady Ware didn't shut their doors. We just all started working somewhere else called our homes on a due date, by the way. And so life just stopped on a dime. And not just work, how you eat, how you go to the grocery store, how you get out and do anything, how events, church, all of it stopped on a dime. And all of a sudden we're watching Wine with DeWine every day, right? And the marketplace is kind of empty and traffic is nowhere and parking lots are not full. So much for enjoying the steak at Jeff Ruby's. I was just trying to find ground beef at Giant Eagle to make a taco kit. But I tell you, as a business owner and as a leader in my company, I was amazed at the resilience of business owners in the marketplace. And in all of this chaos, not just COVID-19, but a lot of social unrest and politics and all the stuff that was happening, the marketplace and business owners chose to jump in, not jump off. They chose to stay the course. This was their livelihood. This was what they were doing. And so some people, have done really, really great through all of this, and they're hitting it, they're rocking it, and some people have been devastated through this. But regardless of where you are, it's exhausting and we're tired. That I can pretty much tell you. So by mid-year, we've slowed down a little bit in June and July, where we're now assessing things, looking at things. And the question that I kept asking during that time, and I'm still asking, is now what? I think it's going to be asked a lot more beyond 2020. I don't think we're going to really just stop. We also had to look at not just at business and in the marketplace, we're looking at our personal lives going, now what? Now what do I do with kids? Now what do I do with no school? Now where's my daycare? Now what are we going to do as family? Now we don't go out to eat. Now we stay home. It was just so many things like that going on at one time. So I went on vacation. I was one of those. I went to Florida. I went to a very quiet beach, actually. And I was walking one morning, and there was this little kid, probably 8 years old, 8, 9 years old, very, very happy, huge smile with his mom. And he had caught a fish, about 6 to 8 inches long, okay? And so he was beaming. And so I went over to him and his mom. I was with my husband, and I said, wow, what a fish. What are you gonna do, eat that? Are you throwing it back? Really good catch. And he looks at me and says, first, you need to social distance. So I did, and I stepped back. And without hesitation, he said, I'm not going to eat the fish or throw it back. I'm going to use this fish for bait so that I can have a bigger fish. We start walking back down the beach, and my husband goes, please don't start talking about that. Well, it was a podcast moment for me. It was, that kid had a lot to say in that moment, which is in his moment, he's looking at what he has, and he's looking at it to turn it into something bigger and better. This is no different to me, no different of the marketplace that we are in right now. So now what? Let's ask those questions and let's get through that. What are you gonna do? Where are you gonna start? You're gonna breathe. Everyone breathe and focus. But you do have to take some action. The action is knowing, the action is assess and move, the actions reflect and embrace. Because life is full of COVID-19s, maybe not quite that extreme. It's not about the matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so we got to really dig into, and the good news for you business owners is this. You can control what goes on in your business, and the basics of business have not changed. The basics of business are still there. The approach of how we execute those business basics are different. So let's talk about that. So number one is knowing all the basics of business. I didn't say know some of them. I said know all of them. These are the things that are at the heart and core of your business. Revenue and customers, expense, debt, and cash flow. Advisors and partners, we're going to talk about that. Vendors, the more the transactional things. Marketing and technology, two of my favorites. And then company structures, those pillars, the very core and strength of your business. We're going to dig into these and have some fun. So remember, you got to keep listening to get that $50 gift card. So let's talk about revenue and customers first. Because revenue is always the fun, positive, upbeat thing. Because if you have good revenue, you know what? It's going to turn into cash. Cash does a lot of things for you in business, for sure. If you have the correct type of revenue, it will turn into cash because that revenue is profitable. And you only know if the revenue is profitable if you have solid, good financial statements and record keeping going on in your business. QuickBooks is not just a file for the year-end tax return. Your software isn't just something someone else does. There's more to what do we have in the bank today and did we make any money? Financial statements communicate something to you, and revenue is one of those things. And when you take that and really have it in real time, not 3 months from now, but as things are happening, your revenue can grow and it can turn into the cash that you need in your business. But revenue growth, just because you grow, if it's not good and you lose money on it, then it's not beneficial. You don't make money to pay somebody. And you don't know that unless you really have good financials and data and a team around you that can help you with it. But revenue growth, we're going to grow. I had someone say, we're going to grow 30%. I said, okay, good. You are in a 90-day pay for most of your customers. Do you have a line of credit that can pay for that many workers? Because you're not going to get paid for their payroll for 3 months from the customer. Oh, so revenue growth has to be controlled. In the case of Jeff Ruby, I go back to that restaurant. They decided to do curbside because guess what? Everyone else is doing curbside. It was a disaster. He even put a statement out saying it was a disaster and we don't want to serve our food like that. They came up with a great plan. Cook our food. We said, what? They gave us the steaks that were awesome. They gave us a video that said how to cook the steak. The mac and cheese went in the oven. The green beans went in the oven. The bread was ready to be warmed and the salad was tossed. A lot less money. Not quite the same experience, but it was awesome on our deck in April. So revenue growth is great, but you got to be ready for it and plan, and there has to be a need. Otherwise, you're growing and you'll never sustain it. So during these times, this is a great time to look at your revenue streams. They probably need review, they need overhaul, they need looked at, maybe some need developed, maybe some need left alone. Do not touch. You get, that concept of out with the old, in with the new. Perfect. But it's a continual conversation. I do this every September after we kind of get through the madness of due dates. Who do I want to work for? Who do I want as a customer because it's good revenue that's profitable that turns into cash for Bradyware? Those are things that I do annually, but I do it throughout as well. But don't fix what isn't broken. If it works, great. And the best think tank that you can have to figure out some new streams is your employees. They understand your clients probably better than you do. They're in it, and they probably have some really good ideas. I would really let them do some think tanking and own it, because if that happens, you'll have engagement. I was really impressed. Every industry had to do some pivoting and changing and thinking differently. Nobody was exempt from that, especially in that March and April time for sure. But I was really impressed with restaurants. They jumped to the occasion with curbside, and they jumped with casual dining. I mean, that's busting it right now. And I never now want to go somewhere without doing curbside. I don't get out of my car. So they really came up with a product quickly that will be now sustained. Banks really don't need branches. I go in one once or twice a year, but a lot of them now aren't even open at all. You can't go in. Do you need to go in? And professionals, really, they can work at home. Bradyware proved that. In 24 hours, we were set, ready to go. And it worked, and it's still working. So creating products or services, it does require capital, cash, or access to capital, cash. So when you're looking at your revenue, when I'm telling you to overhaul, look at new streams, get rid of stuff, add stuff, you have to make sure the capital piece is there because you might need it. So be careful before you just start removing things and getting new things. You got to make sure you have that cash flow sustains. It might take time to ramp up. It might take time to get the right product. So let me do this because I'm really learning to do things in my life by asking questions because you have to answer them. So here are questions about revenue that you as an organization should absolutely be asking. Always first, what keeps me up at night about revenue? What's that 3 o'clock conversation in my head? Why can't I get sleep at some midnight? Because that revenue question's going on. What is my most profitable sale? Do I even know? Do I even have financials that can tell me that? Is my financial information accurate? Is it telling me what I need to know to grow revenue? And do we have that capital and access to it to get to the right revenue? Is my revenue created right now for the past and not the future? We're going to talk about that in a little bit more. And lastly, I ask this every question last, am I missing out on opportunity because I didn't pivot during COVID-19? And there's some people who've done it really well, and there's some people who missed opportunity and will maybe still continue to miss opportunity. Okay, customers. Know your customer and your audience. Jeff Ruby knew his customer. You know why? Because when he did food, terrible heat up a $24 hamburger. Instead, we're going to teach you how to make a hamburger. He knew his audience liked the hamburger. He just had to do it differently. It's probably changed like that for a good amount of us. And how do you deal with your customers and knowing them? You got to know them because they're either A clients, B clients, C, or D. Of course, D's go away, right? Do they? A's are who you want, but then you even still have to have a criteria about A. Is A large, and that means it's a great client? Is A because we just have fun together and we've done work for 20 years? You have to determine what that A looks like. But once you have criteria around it, by the way, your team needs to be involved with that because what you think is a good client, what they think is may not be the same thing. But develop that so you get your A's, and by the way, D's can go then and see you're on notice that you might be gone. Rough stuff, but you got to know those customers, you got to know the audience, and you got to manage that. Just because they breathe doesn't make them a good customer. What questions are you asking about your customers? First one, of course, what keeps me up at night about my customers? What keeps me up at night? What are my best customers? And are my best customers the ones I have in my pipeline that I want to get more of? Do I have a database to even know who I've gone after and have a tracking system? I hate that kind of stuff, but it works. Am I marketing and networking to my A clients, my A customers, my A prospects? Right now, marketing's hard to do, so you better be selective where you're doing it. Do I have enough customer, or do I have enough capital to make sure those customers are taken care of and can be serviced if they get, especially if they're new? And are my customers surviving COVID-19? You better be really looking at that. They might get through it while they still have PPP money and idle money, but are they going to make it into 2021? And you need to ask those questions. That could affect you big in the coming days. And of course, my last question, am I missing out on opportunity because I did not pivot during COVID-19? It's not too late because COVID-19 isn't gone. So revenue generates cash flow when you have the right customer and financial data. Can't emphasize that enough. So that's basic number one. That's an easy one. Know your basics. I didn't tell you anything you didn't know today. It's kind of like going to Weight Watchers. I know that lemon meringue pie is not a food group, but these are basic 101 things that if you're not asking the question, you're not going to know the answer. So expenses, debt, and cash flow. Expenses. Now, I'm not a traditional CPA, so I think these three things are expenses. My colleagues may disagree with me, but it means cash is going out of your checking account. So that's why I call them expenses. Number one is the typical expense. What's the cost to sell a product? If you're a hair salon, you have a hairdresser. Well, she's got tools and a stool, and she's got supplies and etc. So what does it cost to sell your product? The second cost is overhead. You know, the typical things, the cost of doing business. You got to pay rent whether you like it or not. I mean, you know, it just happens. You got to pay your phone bill whether you like it or not. And then expenses are generally always found on the income statement, but these are expenses because they're cash coming out of your checking account that are on your balance sheet. And this is huge for business owners. They don't understand. You're paying down debt. That's not in your profit and loss, just the interest. You are taking distributions or draws or dividends as the owner. That's not in your bottom line. So you got to make enough to do that. Your taxes are not in your bottom line if they flow through to you. You got to have enough cash to do that. And then investment in the future. If you're buying a building or you're building up inventory or you're getting new property, plant, and equipment, that's not on your bottom line. There's a thing called depreciation. I'm not going to get that technical. So you have to know that you got 3 types of thing taking your cash. The cost to do business, the cost of the product to sell, and then all the things you're doing to pay off debt and reinvest and pay yourself. Those are huge, huge things when you're talking about expense. And just so you know, my CEO tells the shareholder group at Brady Weir on a constant basis, cutting expenses is not revenue growth. And I used to kind of disagree with him. Cutting expenses is just what you should do and be a good steward, but it's not revenue growth. And that you need to understand in your business. If you went through all your vendors and changed the cable bill and saved $9.99 a month, good for you. It's not revenue growth. So, and then when you're looking at who you're paying, who you're writing checks to, are they your partners or are they just a transaction? Because it needs to be relational. When you're writing checks to someone, it needs to be relational because it needs to be valuable to you, not just an expense. So those are things that I wanted to talk about with expenses. And of course, I'm going to ask you, what are the questions you should be asking about expenses? Well, first, what is keeping me up at night about my expenses? Am I really a good steward with my overhead? You know, have I really, or am I buying from a friend from 20 years and I really know I'm getting a good deal? And again, is my gross profit and my net profit enough to cover me, the shareholder, of the things I need? Do I have enough money that I can do some of it with buying power so my expenses can come down? And then those partnerships where I told you you're writing checks to, they should be relations, all that. Are they up with the times? Well, and are they going to survive COVID-19? Are they trying to still sell you Yellow Book page ads, or are they really coming up with a social media, digital media plan for you? Those are important questions to be asking. When you know the answers, it's so helpful to go forward and answer now what. And again, the last question I always ask, am I missing out on opportunity because I did not pivot during COVID-19 regarding my expenses? Okay, debt. We're going to cover debt, but we are not going to cover cash flow. We're going to move on without that one. But debt, just a couple things to say about debt when you're asking questions about your business and trying to go forward into the next year. Understand this, good debt generates revenue. When you buy a Jaguar, what are you going to get in revenue? You're just going to get a really cool car that you like. But if you're filming people with a phone to make videos, all right, you can get a decent video, right? But if you had a studio that had padded walls and a teleprompter and the right equipment, you probably could have a much, much better product that you could sell for better. So investing in that equipment, guess what? If you do it right and you buy it right, you're going to have investment in revenue in the future. So that's okay debt. The third kind of debt question that I would deal with is good debt is when you invested in something that will accumulate wealth for you, the business owner. Like, what is that? Like, I bought my own building so I can lease to myself, and my company basically will pay me to pay the mortgage. And in 10 or 15 years, I'll have a building that I can lease to someone else, or better yet, sell along with my business. So that kind of debt is okay. And then good debt is with the right banker who knows your limits and says no. They don't just say no, though. They look at you and they say, we're going to get you there, but not today. So what are the questions that you should be asking about debt? Well, first and foremost, what keeps me up at night about my debt? Secondly, what are my real expenses so I have enough money to be making them and I have the access to it? Is my debt, should I be debt free? Is there anywhere today you should be debt free? What is your debt cost? Who is your banker? What's going to happen after PPP and EIDL loans? What about my line of credit now? And am I lendable? And then last but not least, am I missing out on opportunity because I did not pivot during COVID-19? I actually had somebody come here the other day and say, I didn't think I qualified for PPP, so I did not try. That was $1 million mistake for him. Got to pivot during this time. Still got to pivot. So we go on to advisors. You know, your advisor is one of those basics, and partners. Those are relationship people, and you are only as good as that advisor. Now, my example of advisor, and you're going to kind of laugh, is this. I had a hairdresser back in the late 90s who said to me, you have really big hair and it looks good, but that's what they did in the 80s. And so I'm going to cut your hair today and I'm straightening it just to see what you think. Now, hair doesn't make or break you in business, but what I remember about that was she was an advisor as a hairdresser to me to tell me what I needed to hear, and she gave me some new ideas and she got me to try it. And it was the best thing. That's what a good advisor does. And they have to be in alignment with you. I've had advisors who were aligned about them, not me, not my business. And they got to be honest and upfront, no overpromising. That's not an advisor, that's a salesman. And by the way, expertise is required when you have an advisor or a partner. If you already know, you don't need them. Now, maybe they've taught you some of that and you need to learn more. That's okay. But a good advisor or partner knows something you don't. That's why they're in your lives. So what are the questions? What is keeping me up at night about my advisors? Are they valuable or are they expense? Do I know, like, and trust them? Are they truly an expert? Or do I know more than they do? And what opportunity am I missing out on because I didn't pivot in COVID-19? Okay, so we're going to have time for a question. Let me get to my question here. Sorry about that. The first question, oh, I'm so sorry. Just give me 2 seconds. So gift card, #1, and you have to be able to get it in the chat room first, and Jessica and Brittany are watching that. So question #1, what was the first and last question of each basic part of your business did I ask? It's pretty simple. I repeated it a lot. Hopefully you absorbed it. So that's the question. We'll give you, just keep doing it, and then I'm going to announce those at the end. Okay, so we go into the second to last one, which is marketing and technology. What a new day and we're in on marketing. I am a person who's in the public. I am the person who speaks. I'm the person who's out there. Guess what? That isn't happening right now. So my whole marketing plan went from here to, oh, what do I do now? And what I really decided to do was have a plan. I have a plan and I'm being intentional about it. And I'm taking those plans and I'm going boom, 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 boom. And I'm holding myself to it because I'm not going to be out there speaking. I'm not going to be out there in events and that could be for a while. So how does Betty Collins get out besides what I'm doing today? Never have I done a live webinar. So this is kind of a first time for me. But you had to have a plan, like, could I do live webinars and what impact would that have and who would you get to? So I've really had someone helping me just do that plan and keep it organized and keep me accountable. Because I've got to be able to connect, not just connect, I've got to be engaged with whoever I'm on screen with. You know, I've got eight icons of how I could reach you through Zoom and Skype and all these places, and I have them now. It's just part of life now. But it's sometimes really hard to be engaged. I'm just connected. So I've got to dive into that. And you really need a marketing strategist who's up with times, who's in place, who's looking at the different things that could be done. So company structure and policy, I'm not going to talk a lot about that But when you're talking about, your company structure and policies, you're really talking about what is that current business model. You will be amazed how many people don't have a current business model, org charts, and how things flow, and what are our processes, what are our policies. Brady Ware now has a 12-page document on COVID, how we come to work, how we don't come to work, how we go to clients, what we can and cannot do. Huge, big, big, big. So to me, you have to really take these basics and you have to know them, and you have to know them all. And if you can't know them all, guess what you do? You get somebody who gets you there. You get your team and you leverage. So now we're going to go into the next, which is assess and move. So these, again, more actions. We're doing the knowing part. We're done with that. Now assess the damage of COVID-19. I'm not talking about your weight gain. Okay? I am not talking about all the habits you now have that are not good. Although those are not bad things to assess, right? But you have to look back and you have to keep moving forward. So that's why I have assess and move in the same thing. Plan and then plan and then plan. By the way, hope is not a strategy. You've got to map this out. You've got to control the direction, and you got to be ready to change that course of action. Where you're moving to, and because you assessed, might all of a sudden be more assessment and you're moving again, right? So how do we assess? What are we assessing? Well, I'm a CPA, so I'm going to stick to financial statements. That's why I'm going to give another gift card away very shortly so that you'll stick with me. So assess the damage. What that means is in business, what is my financial position today? It's nothing more, by the way, than your balance sheet and your ability to have a positive, good income statement, which, by the way, grows the balance sheet. Now you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. But that's how you assess so you can move forward. You have to know where you are. What is that financial position right now? So then you have to look at it and say, my financial statement is nothing more than I have assets and I have liabilities, and hopefully the assets are much bigger than the liabilities. And that I'm making money so that the assets grow and the liabilities kind of go away. So one of the things I always get with people is, well, then where's all my cash from my profit? Because I made all this money. Where's the cash? It's not in my checking account. And what is the difference between a balance sheet and an income statement? You would be amazed how many people don't know that. It's not exciting stuff, I get it. What balance sheet does is it does tell your net worth, but it doesn't tell you what you can sell your business. And then ratios kind of are real important between both of these statements, and your CPA should be able to sit down with you or your advisor and go, here's your ratios, and they're not good or they're good, because that's what your bank looks at. So you need to understand those. And I'm not going to go into those today. It's kind of complicated, and it's not something that I want to try to bite off in this hour. So where is all the cash from my profits? Because cash is king, right? And it pays you, and it pays your employees, and it helps you reinvest, and it gets rid of your debt, and it lets you expand. Where is all the cash? Well, you got to accumulate cash because you've got a product that is profitable. We've already talked about that. And you have to be able to look and say, my cash has to pay off things on my balance sheet. So you always have to be watching all of those things. Cash is not just expense. And so you would be surprised how many people say, I don't even take anything out of my business. And then I go to their distribution account and I go, yeah, you take a lot out of your business. So watching how the cash flows from the financial statements and how they all work will tell you why you don't have cash, and then you have to do something about it. And not only is it about having a budget in your personal or in your company, but in your personal life. How much do I really have to take out of my business right now to live? So the differences between financial statements, though, is really easy. The balance sheet goes on and on and on and on and on until you stop business. You put money in, you earned money, you lost money, you took money out. It's just a living, continual document. The profit and loss comes and goes. It starts in 12 months and you're done and you start over. And then all the profit, you go to zero and everything. Well, where does that go? It goes into your equity, into your balance sheet. So those are the differences between that. And what's really interesting is then on your balance sheet, you actually have the net income on your equity section, but your profit and loss, they don't have anything to do with your balance sheet in that way. So those are the differences between the statements. You got to know them. They connect each other, and it will tell you where your cash is. It will get you there. One of the things I said was, your financial statement shows you your worth, and it does on book. But I would challenge you to say, if I sold this tomorrow, what could I get for it? Because you're selling your customer service, you're selling your customer list, you're selling your quality in your staff and your management and in your leadership, and you're selling key things and reputations. So you might even sell a patent, you might sell some assets like, brick and mortar, but there's so many things like an employee, that employee value doesn't show up on your balance sheet, right? So those are things you have to also look outside of when you're looking and assessing where you are. Some of these things are not on my financials. Are they working and are they good? So those are important things to go through. And when you're looking at when you're assessing and you're looking at your income statement, you really do have to dive in to say, what's the customer I want? Because if I don't assess that and move forward with the customer I want, you're gonna have the same results. When I came to Bradyware 9 years ago, one of the things the VP of marketing said to me was, who's your best client? And of course, I immediately said large ones. Well, that's not your best client, always. And so then I started looking at, do they value me? Do they pay me? Do they have ethics, a standard of ethics that I have to have? Do they care that I'm gonna make money too in this whole transaction? And you have to determine, to get that income statement where you want it, you have to really get into the characteristics of the customer that generates the revenue, that generates the cash. And the last question I hopefully will ask you is, what am I missing because I'm servicing the wrong client? That wrong client takes your resources. They might take your cash because they pay you every 90 days. They might really irritate your employees and they leave. If you're servicing the wrong client, you're missing opportunity to serve the client that you want. So moving forward, that was kind of assessing cash flow, where's my cash, income statement, but moving forward, profitability forward, forecasting and budgets, making sure I cover all the expenses that are really on the balance sheet called cash flow comes out of my checking. I have to move forward with debt. So what now do I look like with PPP and idle money? And am I going to be able to get more debt if I needed it? And is my line going to work in the future for what we need to be doing? Because we've answered a bunch of questions about our business. And then what does the banker in your life say? What is 2020? Are they going to kind of slow down with lending? Are they going to be cautious of certain industries? What's the Feds say? So when you're moving forward, you have to get that advisor, and the banker is a real crucial one in front of you to give you insight. And right now, for some of you who's like, I'm really done well, this is awesome. And an example for you in Bradyware, we don't travel right now because there's nowhere to travel to. We have very limited times where we're going to actual clients. So our mileage reimbursement in meals and entertainment, all that stuff has dropped drastically. We also aren't in the marketplace at events or sponsoring because they're not there to do. And so right now we have a windfall of all that money we spent. What's going to be the future in 2021 because we weren't out meeting and doing new things? So time for question number 2. What is good debt? It's an easy one. I just threw that at you. That's easy. So right now might be a little false security. We've not spent as much in Bradyware on travel, and yay. We also haven't made the connections we would want for future customers, right? Or be with our existing ones. So you got to watch that to make sure there's not a false security. And then ramping back up. Right now you've been able to stream back, you've been able to come back, and now you're like, wow, I don't have the money now to go get 2 more employees so we can fill these orders, or I don't have the inventory that I can build up because number one, people are out of inventory that I can even buy from. So sometimes this nice, hey, I'm sitting here still, might give you some false security. So you need to make sure you don't get trapped in that. So now we go to reflection. Reflection's not nearly as long, but here's reflection. My battery's getting low, Brady. Brady. Reflection is important because you have to look at the past. Hindsight is easy. You have to look at the present where you are going, we're doing okay, but the future has to be thought through. It is always easy to look back and analyze. It's always easy to even look at the present. It's almost never easy to predict the future. Do not overlook assessment and reflection. It's really, really key. And then, of course, embracing a new day. Folks, this is the day that we are in. You got to embrace it. How do I deal with the fatigue of COVID-19? Rest. That's what you do. You can go to the next slide. Rest. That's what you do. So how do I stay positive and energized? I got rid of my Twitter account. I don't hardly go on Facebook or I do patches. It's only with my grandchildren. I only read the paper now, that the crossword section, and I definitely do not watch news. I stay informed in different ways. So for me, that's what I've done to stay positive and energized. It is not business as usual. So you've got to look at, am I in the right mindset, like that kid with the fish? And skills, do I need to have some different skills to continue to go on? So you got to embrace that I might have to do some things differently. And your personal side of life needs the same thing. Do not neglect the personal side. It's been really hard on the personal lives in our homes. So put your attention into asking the questions about your home life too. Don't ignore that. Okay, you can move on. So I do have handouts that have all these questions, but I do have another question that someone can answer. Go get that, because I'm trying to give 4 of these away. This one's a harder one, so I probably should give $75 instead of $50, but what was one thing you heard that's the difference between a balance sheet and an income statement? There you go. But it is all about mindset. As we close today, we're going to do some Q&A if I've got questions. It's about your mindset. Look at the opportunities you have that you can find. Take the fish, don't just eat it and throw it away or throw it back. Use it to catch a bigger fish or to do something differently with it. Take that investment of that fish and make it into something more. And you won't regret it. So I would again like to thank the WSBA for sponsoring this with us. Thank you, Missy Beheimer, for being here today after the busy month you guys have had. Thank you to the BBB, who's the technical background behind this, along with Brittany, Paul, who is at Brady Ware. It takes a lot of energy and time to do these things, so don't worry. And so the last question, and then we'll do real questions, is, and this one's really easy, so you might just want to be really quick on the slide, but don't you think Betty Collins is rocking it in this leopard print today? Yes or no is the answer. So those are 4 cards. We'll get you your answers back and those type of things. But so hopefully this kind of helped you to kind of organize your thoughts, and certainly the handouts and questions will help you kind of do that. So I guess, Jessica, do we have questions that people would like me to answer?
We do have some questions.
Okay, great. Ask them.
Absolutely. The first question is, am I missing out on an opportunity because I didn't pivot during COVID-19?
Mm-hmm. Well, that question could be asked for anybody and anything. If restaurants did not want to do curbside, if restaurants said, we'll wait till we open, we'll just get PPP money and shut our door, they've missed a huge opportunity. And their competition got that opportunity, right? And I could go on and on with those kinds of situations. If you don't want to do Zoom, good for you. you're going to miss the only way you can probably connect with other people. If you want to use a product that is substandard and never works when you try to do online meetings, you're missing opportunity to connect with people. Because if you get the opportunity to connect well, technically, you're probably going to have more room for engagement. So those are the opportunities. What other questions?
Let me take a look here. It looks like some people were giving you insight on what kind of keeps them up at night. A lot of it actually looks like it has to do with pivoting, and if maybe there was a missed opportunity to pivot, or did they pivot in the right way?
Okay.
I have a few answers about your questions in here, so I'll make sure that I note those. And let's see. And it's a unanimous vote that you are rocking the leopard print.
Who answered first? They get the $50 gift card. So
I will have to take a look and see who is. Yeah, we will make sure that we note all that down. And let me just review these here to make sure that I'm not missing. Okay, here's one. One moment. The question is, how do we report a disaster grant? Regular revenue that is taxable or question mark?
yes, so it works two ways. There's the idle loan. Notice it said loan. When it is a loan, that is not revenue because you're going to pay that back. Okay, so loans are not revenue. Now, at first, the PPP was called the PPP loan, right? So everyone's like, okay, this is a loan, I'm going to take it, it's cheap interest, I need to pay my employees. Well, then the government, several times, several bills, they're still playing around, and it said, we're going to let you ask for forgiveness if you spend this correctly. All of a sudden now, that loan is forgiven. So that is income to you. Now, they're still working on a plan that might not make you pay tax on that and count it as revenue. So your accountant should be working with you, first of all, on, we got to get the forgiveness piece into the bank that we got the loan through, because you don't want to miss the opportunity to forgive. And I'm going to round numbers. Let's say you got $100,000. You don't want to pay $100,000 back, right? So get the forgiveness piece done with your banker. Once you know you are forgiven, it's revenue. So there's going to be a little bit more to it than that, because when are they going to tell you you're forgiven? What if they tell you next year? But once it becomes not a loan, it's revenue. If it was a grant and they said you don't have to pay it back, chances are it's revenue.
Great.
And I would have, and if you want to, my contact information is at the end of the presentation, where you can see my email and such. If you want to put that up. And ask me these questions, give me a little bit more detail, and I'll be glad to answer them. And I've got experts who are in PPP and on the task force. But always look at it this way. If it was not a loan, chances are it will be revenue to you.
Great, thank you, Betty. And there is another question.
Sure.
Should I use my money to pay off debt or to keep building my company?
Well, yes and no. Should you pay off debt? If you have too much debt, if your banker says you have too much debt, you're never going to get this paid off, then I would tell you to have a budget that deals with this much money a month is going to go to debt. So I have a plan over 5 years to be done with this debt because it's excessive and I shouldn't have taken it out. If it's credit card debt, I would tell you do anything you can to downsize that to a different type of loan and term it and cut the cards and have what you need only. Now, investment, I would tell you, you should be doing both at the same time if you can. I'm going to have a plan to pay off this much, but I'm going to have a savings so that when I get the A client who needs me, I've got cash in the bank to service them. Or my banker's already told me, if you go get this A client, it's this good, then guess what we're going to do? We're going to give you a higher line of credit because your financial position and your balance sheet and income statement look good. So the answer is yes and yes. Pay off debt, but you also balance it. I mean, in my own personal life, I pay off debt, but I also put so much in my 401k and I put so much into savings. And it's all balanced based on what do I need more right now.
Thank you.
Sure.
Another question is, I'm struggling with starting a relationship with an accounting firm as a small independent business owner. Where do you suggest I start?
First of all, with Betty Collins. No.
Wonderful.
Accounting is personal, hands down. And so you have to pick somebody that you can have a relationship with and have a conversation with. That is the first and foremost thing I would tell you. And it's amazing how I have had people come to me, I'm looking the wrong way here, come to me and say, it's so funny, I'm trying to move my hair on screen. Okay, have come to me and said, I felt so belittled when they interviewed me, or I interviewed them. And I said, well, that's the problem. You're interviewing them. You've got to like them. You've got to have a cup of coffee and connect. So that's the first thing I would tell you. The second thing is accountants are no different than you. They have to make money at what they do. I will be honest with you. When I get a bill from my attorney, I'm never jazzed. It's by the hour. It's, you know, it's that thing. But I need my estate and my wills and different things done. So I want someone who knows what they're doing. So you have to really look at it and say, this is what I need from you, Betty Collins, and I want to know what it's going to cost, and then where's the value in it. So you got to have those conversations, and just because you're small doesn't make you not valuable as a client to them. 80% of clients in this country are small business. I'm going to say under $5 million, under $1 million. If you make $200,000 in your Schedule C business and you spend 50 to make it, you make really good money. If you have $2 million in sales and you spend $2.2 million, you're gonna be broke. So size isn't the issue. It is, I need certain compliance things done like tax. I need decent financials so I know what I'm doing. And I want somebody who can take me to next levels. Those are the things you look at when you're looking at accounting. And you'll realize, yeah, there's some expense there, but I'll probably get that money back if they know what they're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you, Betty.
Sure.
That looks like all the questions that we have. So I'm going to turn my camera on really quickly here. I want to say thank you again so much for taking the time out today to do this, to talk with our audience. And as a reminder, we did record this webinar, so you will be able to refer back to it. You can find it at trustlocal.org. So feel free to take a look at that. Please take the handouts that Betty provided for you. You can go ahead and download those. It's the full presentation and then another PDF that she gave you guys. And unless I see any last minute questions come through, I just want to say thanks again. And I think we'll go ahead and wrap up unless there was anything else you wanted to say, Betty.
Well, they can also contact me at my email just to ask questions, and you know, if there were things that you don't want to ask right now or you think about later, please don't hesitate to do that. But I wouldn't be good if I didn't say, and at the bottom of my screen is my podcast. So you want to listen to that. It's very good.
Yes, absolutely. So feel free to listen to that. Again, reach out to Betty if you have any questions, and you can always reach out to any of us as well. So
yeah, and we will get you your gift cards of those who answered.
Yes, I have the list of everybody who answered for the gift card, so I will make sure I get that to you and Brittany. And
you want to just real quick, it's 12:57.
Sure.
You got the
Absolutely.
name.
So we had Melissa Beheimer. We had Tana Allen was another one who was the second recipient. Tiffany Hollinger was the third recipient, and then Stacy Hoover was number 4. So congratulations.
Great.
And like I said, we will make sure that we get those to Betty, and she can, you know, reach out and touch base with you guys on that. So.
Will do. Happy Friday, TGIF, and thank you for listening today. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.